Here is the angle. After Aatrox's video, after our Aatrox voice line video, people in the comment section said, bro, you need to watch Kled. So how about we start the journey of Kled? But first of all, we need to understand what is Kled. Let's start with the idea of Kled, not 720, come on. And let's see what is Kled. What is the creature we know as Kled? Why am I in there? Hello? I should be here, Jesus. Alright, bro, I don't know, when it comes down to violence and classical music, it's something on a different level, like straight up, especially when this piece is Morning Mood by Edward Grieg. Like, bro, I just know it all. Everyone getting destroyed. So nice. Oof. Oof. So majestic. So majestic. Like, bro.
You're trespassing.
And of course, since he's on Scarlet, he decided to 1v20 that because that was easy for Scarlet. For Kled. Now the question is, what is Kled? The real question is, what is Kled? So how about we do a 10-minute video from Necrit, like, what is Kled? What is his story? What was his deal? Because as far as I'm concerned, he looks like a crazy person. Crazy miniature Yordle version of Jack Sparrow in League of Legends universe. Yeah, that's what we have. So let's see what's the backstory. He's racist. Is he? No, that's Demacia. Demacia is a racist.
Besides the one abomination that popped up on PBE, there's been a lot of story updates happening lately. We got updated bios for Kennen, Singed, and Ishtal got a massive story that we will dig into next time.
Nice. Also, speaking of Kennen, I'm not 100% sure, but I saw someone in my comment section say that Kennen is a female. That's for another day, but just keep that in mind.
But knowing my audience, although I originally wanted to cover Singed first, I decided to please you guys and cover the memeier champions first. And when you say memes, of course the first thing that comes to my mind is Kled, and nothing else. I wanted to have a look at Kled because his story was always without a sauce. He was always just an old grumpy Yordle somewhere in Noxus. And that was literally it.
Good enough. That's still 10 times more information than Shaco.
So when I heard that Riot updated Kled's bio too, I got interested. Because I wanted to see if they were able to turn a simple and a little bit boring story into something with an actual point.
How is it a boring story if he's crazy, bro? Crazy, never boring, bro. That's the reason single guys always have a hots for the crazy girls. Because they're crazy, that's it.
And so, let's have a look at the newly fleshed out Kled. The new bio still refers to Kled as a little bit of a legend in Noxus.
True.
Which means that a lot that's said about him comes from myths and stories. For example, the stories about Kled date back to the foundation of Noxus, perhaps even further than that. The common soldiers revere Kled for all the deeds he had presumably done, and some even claim to have served in a war host besides him, which
also we have to consider the fact that Yordles are immortal. Well, they cannot die of old age, but in combat they can die, so we know. Technically, he can be the Kled himself could have been at the very beginning of time.
Concerns the Noxian command, because they need their soldiers to be loyal and disciplined, and Kled wouldn't be the best example for that. Stories such as the Great Hussar's Victory, the return of the High General Marshal Sergeant, and the Mountain Admiral seem to suggest that Kled fought in every campaign Noxus ever waged, he acquired every military title, and he never once backed down from a fight. Although the details of these stories got hazy and they started contradicting as they were passed between people, the essential part always stayed the same. Kled always charged into battle on his untrusty steed called Scarl, and he was ready to protect what...
Scarl. Chat, just think about it. Scarl. S-K-A-A-R-L. Double A. Scarl Adarkin confirmed. Jeff. Just think about it.
What was his. and perhaps even take whatever else he could get. But these were just stories passed among the soldiers in the Noxian military.
Even Scarlet got the memo. Yeah, there was a memo. Bro, there was a memo.
And thankfully for us, the bio also reveals Kled's actual story. In truth, the Cantankerous Cavalier, which is Kled's actual title, comes from a different land entirely. Just like the majority of Yordles, Kled comes from Bandle City. He joined the Noxai tribes after the Rune Wars, and he has never looked back at Bandle City since.
The Rune Wars was the event that literally wiped the entire planet, no?
Which means that Kled did technically join Noxus during its foundation. The Immortal Bastion was already built, because Mordekaiser's fall came about 400 years before that. And since the Rune Wars raged 13 years before Noxus became a separate nation, that means that Kled was there at year 0. Which makes Kled at least 1000 years old. But
Jesus, he's kinda old. But keep in mind, even you might be thinking, oh no, he's over 1000 years old. LeBlanc is still older than that.
Since we don't know how old he was when he joined Noxus, I'd say he may be as old as 2000 years, if not a lot more. I mean, Poppy joined Demacia during its foundation, which would make her a bit more than 800 years old. And look at the difference between the two. Kled...
That's 800, by the way. Where's the fucking picture? There it is. Come on, 800, by the way, yeah. And then we have Zoe, who is thousands of years old, and who looks like a little child.
Difference between the two. Kled has to be at least twice as old as Poppy. Anyway, let's continue. The first recorded mention of Kled comes from the first Battle of Drune, where in the Dusty Badlands, barbarians overpowered a Noxian war host, which was led by General Zavan. I'm going to assume...
Bro, I'm starting to see a lot of double A's everywhere. Why the f*** everyone got the memo, but Varus didn't get the memo? There was a memo.
That this is not a typo, because Zavan, spelled with the double A's in a different place, is a thing. Zavan is the name of Elise's house. And
now this just makes everything complicated. So Elise lives in the Darken, kinda hot.
Since it is a Noxian family, the name General Zavan would make sense, since Noxian generals carry the name of their family. That's why Katarina's father is simply known as General Dooku To. It's because he comes from the Dooku To family. So if this is not a typo, that means that Zavan is a unique character, and he has nothing to do with Elise and the Zavan family. Although that does mean that the poor guy probably gets confused a lot. Anyway, back to the story. As I mentioned, during the first Battle of Drune, the Noxian war host led by General Zavan was on the run from the barbarians. They already lost 2 encounters, and so their morale was low. They even had to abandon their supply train, and the nearest outpost was at least a week of marching away. And yet, Zavan, in his perfectly spotless shiny armor, seemed to be more concerned about his reputation and how this would appear back home, more than the survival of his soldiers.
Yeah, if a knight has a shiny armor after 2 battles, by the way, you know there's something sus with the knight because he didn't do any fighting whatsoever.
So he ordered his men to form a defensive circle to buy himself some time to think. But then, as the morning sun rose, the lone figure known as Kled appeared on the nearby hill, riding on a desert Dracolops, which is the name for Scarl species. Although his spear was rusty, his armor old, and his clothes tattered, his one good eye was burning with anger. From the hill, he shouted at the barbarians, demanding they leave his land or be destroyed. However,
sounds like a Murican redneck. Get off my lawn, these kids, bro!
He didn't wait for the barbarians' response, and he charged at them screaming straight away. Despite the Noxian soldiers starving and being furious with their general, somehow at the sight of Kled in action, the war host's anger ignited, and they rushed after Kled as he tore into the barbarians' front lines. What followed was one of the bloodiest battles ever fought in the northern hills. The initial Noxian charge was immediately annihilated by a rain of barbarian arrows, but Kled kept fighting, even after he was thrown from his saddle, and his Dracolops fled. No matter what happened, it seemed like Kled was always in the heart of the battle, chopping down foes, kicking out teeth, and biting faces.
Straight up, my guy is a reincarnation of Mordekaiser. Hear me out, what if, wild theory, because that's the whole shebang of Mordekaiser. He killed everyone because he felt alone in the afterlife. So it's not to be alone in the afterlife, he started killing people. The more you kill, the more people in the afterlife. The more friends you have, you know, in the afterlife when you die. So what if one day bound Mordekaiser, imprisoned Mordekaiser, what if He did some bada bing bada bam and he reincarnated himself as a Kled. And he still is on the mission to kill everyone.
The bodies piled up around him, and his clothes were now soaking with blood. He screamed challenging words, and quite a few insults at the barbarians, proving to them that Kled would rather die than to back down. And just as cowardice can spread quickly throughout an army, so can courage. And so, because of Kled's grumpy and angry attitude, where the Noxian soldiers might have given up and fled for their lives, instead they were inspired to make one last stand. And even Scarlet decided to return and crush the barbarians' rearguard, snarling and clawing as it dived in to free its master. United, Kled and Scarlet became a whirlwind of death, and it was the barbarians who broke and ran. Though too few of the Noxian soldiers survived that day for it to be considered a victory. Drune remained contested for so long that in the end the Immortal Bastion sent reinforcements there to claim the lands for good. Although the war continued for another decade, before the barbarians finally decided to lay down their weapons and join the Noxian Empire.
So he just refused to lose. It's that simple mentality, bro. If you don't surrender, you don't lose. Simple.
Ever since that, Drune has become a foothold for all future campaigns across Dalamore and the rest of the north. And considering that Drune is on a road to the Iron Spike Mountains and Winter Spike in Freljord, both places that are currently occupied by Noxus, you can imagine how valuable this place is. After the first Battle of Drune, the body of General Zavan or his fine armor were never to be found. In time, countless other war hosts of the Empire acquired similar stories about Kled. From these, it seems like Kled is always riding wherever Noxians are marching, claiming the spoils of war himself. And so, Noxian soldiers started joking that, in the end, every battle won gives them a new property of Kled. And that was the newly updated Kled's bio. He also got a short story that remains the same. That story only exists to show us how grumpy and senile Kled is.
But what is Kled's property? I mean, granted, we had listened to Aatrox's quote when he killed Kled. Why did this dead hamster want his property? And why did that hamster want me off of it? So are we talking about the land? Are we talking about Scarlet? What are we talking about?
And the only thing that happens there is that
also, why he has so much property?
Some Noxians try to kick Kled off of the land that Kled thinks is his. And nothing really happens there besides Kled scream.
Every battle he won, he made the battleground his property. Oh, the battlefield. So if you fight everywhere, you conquer the world? Is that how it works? Noxian believes. Okay, makes sense, yeah.
Coming out a lot of insults. So if we ignore that, since nothing changed there, the question I asked at the beginning still stands. Did Riot give Kled a bit more sauce to his story? I believe they did.
A bit.
However, they didn't make Kled himself more interesting.
Nope.
The interesting bits come from pinning his story on the timeline and actually mentioning Bandle City, even if it was literally just mentioned in one sentence. Kled himself still remains a character without any real backstory. They didn't even explain why he joined Noxus in the first place. And I feel like that's crucial information. Was he bored? Did he just like to battle? Or did he want to live a peaceful life away from Bandle City and he just happened to pick the wrong place?
Or maybe he was like Vex, who eventually got bored. Well, Vex was entire life bored, she wants to die. Maybe that's what he wants and he went a bit crazy. No? Maybe he went a bit crazy during the fight.
That would fit Kled after all. What I'm trying to say is that Kled is a cool character.
True.
But the story doesn't have a beginning, a middle, or an end.
Or he doesn't like Demacia. Also true, maybe he doesn't like people in general, you know?
What has is a grumpy old man trying to get kids off of his lawn. Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have need mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below.
Nice.
And as always, thank you, come again.
And we will. And we will, so that's basically a story which is a short story. So there was a battle, Kled got angry, killed everyone. I mean, fits the narrative of a crazy person. And that's the video, boys.